Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about another order by another district court judge saying, United States, you may not deport these people. Now, in a sense, this is just a new chapter in an old book with this administration dating at least to mid-March and the Abrego Garcia case. So this may ripen into more kind of legal stuff, but let me give you what's basically happened is on the ground, the administration has moved very aggressively to deport a class of people dead of night on the weekend. And when their lawyers got wind of it and rushed to court, the administration rushed in behind them and told a big fat lie to the court, on the basis of which the court has now granted relief to the plaintiffs. That's really what's going on here. So I think we can summarize it as, based on that basic scenario, and leave for another day the legal finer points. But we're talking about kids. We're talking about 327 kids. We're talking about 327 kids from Guatemala that somehow, somewhere in the recesses of Stephen Miller's mind or someone who works with him, they said, let's get these kids back to Guatemala. And they issue a list of 9 things that are like, well, they don't have any pending order that they can't go or whatever. Basically canvass the country and find these kids who are now unaccompanied there without their parents. Boom. And in, total Trumpian Malarian, can I say Malarian now? Form, they round them up and somebody says, holy shit, they're roused from their bed, they're crying. And somebody gets to a lawyer and they rush in for an emergency hearing that's even then moved up. So they come in there and say no due process. And moreover, it's a big part of what we will be talking about if it goes much further. All kinds of special provisions in the law, in statutes Congress has passed, and even in settlements of cases brought by prior groups of immigrants where children and minors are concerned. You can't just, throw them on a plane in the same way. That could be a much longer kind of précis, but let's leave it there and say, maybe knowing this, the administration comes in and says, but these 327, Your Honor, they're special. Why? They want to be reunited with their parents, and their parents want to be reunited with them. It's all stitched up. We're doing a good thing, a humane thing, getting them back with their parents. A little strange what 327 unaccompanied people are doing in the United States and having immigration claims if they want to be back with their parents. But this is a representation by the United States to a district court. A year ago, this would have been, that's it, completely sacrosanct. And guess what? Total horseshit. Total friggin' horseshit, which they do again and again and again and again. I've said frequently, the fruitful, just intellectual place to start with different outrages from the Trump administration begin with the lie. That's the lie. Push comes to shove in the district court and they say, oops, our bad. We actually have no evidence that these kids want to be many of them, their parents are dead. Others have had terrible situations at home. This we know because the attorneys have ferreted it out where, they're getting beat up. I mean, we were wrong. I'm sorry, if I worked for the government or in another administration, something like that would be scandalous. What? We depend on your probity and veracity, United States. You just came in and told us, don't you remember? Here it is on the transcript. They want to go back. And now you're saying you were wrong. How the hell did that happen? In the current circumstance, it's like what? Once a week? Just, you don't try this should be housed generally under the valuable rubric, which people are going into specifically, of no presumption of regularity, something that the United States worked for years to be able to have. But in fact, that, they come in and say that, and no one's really surprised that it turns out to be, totally false. Okay, things ensue from that. Now, the judge could have totally lowered the boom, you lied to me, etc. Instead, it's a fairly methodical, intellectual opinion, which just says, oh, and there's no evidence for this totally central, pivotal submission that the U.S. has made. I'm going to certify a class, and that class, so there's a little bit here involving the birthright citizenship / nationwide injunction case. I'm not going to say any Guatemalan child, but I'm not going to say just these 10 here. I'm going to certify a class, and he gives the criteria for it. And I'm going to tell you, United States, you may not deport these folks. And now this, again, it's all temporary, as these things always have been. Now let's get down to the business of figuring out whether you had any legal basis. Maybe if you have some reason for thinking 3 of them wanted to go back or whatever, you can bring that up, but temporarily you're enjoined and you can't do it. So now potentially the U.S. is off to the races as it's been otherwise, saying emergency, how can you keep us from keeping these unaccompanied minors whom the law protects in so many ways that wreaks havoc with our immigration responsibilities and the like. But file this under some combination of nationwide injunction, and it's the Abrego Garcia case where they came in and said, oh, we've sent all these people down, and it turned out to just be wrong about Abrego Garcia in the same way they turned out to be, let's charitably call it, wrong in their representation to the district court, running in and saying these people want to go back home and therefore no problem when they don't. Outrageous that it would happen, and yet pedestrian now and par for the course. And the response, and now it's at the district court level, we'll have to follow what comes up, what sort of emergency the U.S. proffers is, no, this class of some 300 plus Guatemala children, they stay here and don't try to deport them unless and until we go through their claims, which is what this is always about, unless and until we go through their claims. And the Supreme Court shadow docket is always about, you can't go, even without going through their claims, we're granting relief to the administration. So one more chapter along these lines with this piece that's now an asterisk for this administration, but would have been a headline for another, that they just completely made a misrepresentation of the huge pivotal one to the district court that changes the case completely. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.